All right. It is 5:03 on Wednesday, April 16th. This is a special council meeting for the City Council of the City of Alburnett. And we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. I will waive the Pledge of Allegiance and we'll move on to roll call. Councilor Trump.
Present.
Councilor Sukup.
Present.
Councilor Myers.
Present.
Let the record reflect that Councilors West and Bosenberg are absent, but we do have a quorum to conduct business. With that, I would seek a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Trump.
I move to amend date on the agenda to Wednesday, April 16th. Instead of Thursday, April 16th.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Are we good since I didn't get a second on his?
That's fine. Yeah.
You retract your motion?
Yeah, there's no action on it, so we can just go with this.
Okay. Motion by Myers to approve the agenda, amending the day to Wednesday, April 16th. Second by Sukup. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Brings us to the public hearing for the FY26 proposed budget. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Sukup, second by Myers. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The public hearing is open at 5:04 p.m. So we do have in your packet proof of publication. So that is on page 4. So this public hearing was published in the Gazette on Saturday, April 5th. What you'll see is on page 3 of your packet is we do have the notice that was published. You have a copy there. And what it's going to show for FY26, which is the fiscal year starting July 1st of 2025 and running through June 30th of 2026. Taxes levied on property is going to be $387,860. That is an increase from last year. Everything else stays relatively flat. We have a slight increase on other city taxes at $140,335. Licenses and permits has a slight increase because that is where we do collect for rental inspections and permits. Any questions on revenues? Use of money and property stays flat. Decrease in intergovernmental, that is generally from what we get from Otter Creek Township. For the fire department contribution, we've previously had accounted for when we received the grant from Lynn County for the City Hall project, that would go into intergovernmental. Charges for fees and services, that includes our water bills. I assume that's where that revenue, water and sewer. And then transfers in will match our transfers out on the bottom section. Any questions on revenues? Did we receive any questions from written or verbal from that came into City Hall from the public?
No.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I should have started there. For expenditures, public safety, that includes our fire department and our contract with Lynn County Sheriff. So that remains relatively flat. We had a slightly increase for FY25 because we had that invoice that was supposed to be paid last fiscal year that we had to bring into this fiscal year. So I do believe we're relatively flat without that invoice being considered. Public Works, that increase would reflect for materials, vehicle operations, those types of things. So that would be looking at it, it's close to a standard 5% increase. Insurance, a lot of that comes out of the Public Works bucket. Culture and recreation. So we remain to have budget for the city park. One thing to note there. So while we budgeted last year, you'll see the $394,000 for last year. This year it was reduced to $277,570. That is not new money. We did not spend the money this year, but we needed to budget for the expenses for the new fiscal year, but that is not new revenue, if that makes sense. So those were funds that were allocated and went unspent, but we have to grant ourselves the spending authority to be able to spend it next year. So if you're looking at, tax asking or revenues, that is where, when we get to the bottom, you're going to see why we've got some excess. And that's where those types of things come in. Community and economic development, that is our TIF payment. General government, so that's things like city hall, and again, insurance, cost of doing business, electricity, utilities, all those things are included in there, as well as wages. Debt service is based on the schedule that we have. Capital projects, there's $70,000 in there. Business type and enterprises, so that is for water and sewer. Those are the buckets for that. You'll see a slight increase. Again, there's an increase in chemicals, and we have budgeted to do maintenance on well 1, because that is the only well that we have not done any maintenance on yet, to get us caught up with our 20-year schedule. So all in all, our total revenues is $1,103,127. And our total expenditures, including transfers out, is $1,704,284. As I mentioned, does show our excess of $601,157. So that is all either fund balance or from money that was previously allocated from like lost or road use tax that didn't get spent this year that we are carrying forward. So it's in fund balance and it's not new revenue. So as such, our ending fund balance, the very last line, the FY25 ending fund balance, I do expect will increase because we're not using that excess revenue this year as we had anticipated. So that number is going to reset once we finalize this year's budget and close this year's budget out. So our fund balance should remain at a healthy level. I imagine we'll still be above $1 million. Vicki, would you agree with that? Because again, a lot of the funds we're using out of that excess were earmarked this year, but we'll probably get to spending them next year. Any questions? We have no public, so there's no questions from the public. Questions from council?
None at this time.
All right, with that, I would seek a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Myers. Do I have a second?
Sorry.
Second by Trump. Any further discussion? We don't have to leave this one open for a particular period of time, correct? That's just the property tax one. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are closed at 5:11 p.m. All right, that brings us to item number 6, Resolution 04-2025-02. This is on page 2 of your packet. And we'll go ahead and read this one out loud. It's the resolution to approve the City of Alburnett budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. Whereas the Code of Iowa, Chapter 384, Section 16 requires that all cities prepare and adopt an annual budget and certify taxes. Whereas the City of Alburnett held a public hearing on April 16th, 2025 to receive comment on the annual budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. Whereas the budget includes total revenues and transfers in the amount of $1,103,127 and total expenditures and transfers out in the amount of $1,704,284 and a property tax rate of $12.48 Whereas there were no comments received either orally or by written correspondence for or against the proposed budget, now therefore be resolved by the City Council of the City of Alburnett, Iowa, approves the adoption of budget and certification of city taxes for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026, and submittal of the same to the Lynn County Auditor and the state of. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 04-2025-02 as read?
So moved.
Moved by Sukup. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trum. Do that one by roll call. Counselor Trum.
Aye.
Counselor Sukup.
Aye.
Counselor Myers.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Next item on the agenda, we did receive request from ECI COG, who is working with the jurisdictions within Lynn County to update the Lynn County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. I did just notice a typo in the title of this, but you get the point. So what this does, they've sent it off for FEMA approval. FEMA and Homeland Security, it's currently under review. ECI COG on behalf of these jurisdictions did hold a public hearing. They've done a lot of work to make sure that this mitigation plan has been updated. By us adopting it, what it allows is it makes us eligible for grant funding to help with mitigation activities and or potentially if there were some kind of hazard to help with recovery. That is the benefit to us for adopting. I will be honest, I went out and read, the city of Alburnett did not have resources available. We did not participate as heavily as I would have liked. A lot of what was there from they update this every 5 years. What was there from the previous 5 years still stands. We've done a little bit, but not enough that it makes a big difference. But by next review cycle, I will make sure that we are involved and just make sure everything's updated. We should have an updated comprehensive plan and things like that. But again, everything identified for the city of Alburnett, while not as robust as I would like, because we did not have an opportunity to provide our feedback, it is relevant to us. So, and we'll see by 2030 if we all need to put radiological events back in or not. So, any questions on the Lynn County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan? If you would like to review, so you do have, we can get you the email that they sent because it's got a link, but it's on ECI COG's website. So everybody a link to that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and read resolution 04-2025-03, adopting the Lynn County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan 2025 through 2030. Whereas the City Council of the City of Alburnett has herefore deemed it necessary and desirable to have a hazard mitigation plan that identifies potential hazards and the actions that need to be taken to reduce or eliminate the long-term risks to human life and property from those hazards for the citizens of Alburnett. Whereas a local mitigation plan as defined in 44 CFR section 201.6 is required for local jurisdictions that elect to participate in FEMA hazard mitigation programs as a sub-applicant or sub-grantee, whereas the Lynn County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan 2025 through 2030 was funded by a FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Planning Grant, whereas the East Central Iowa Council of Governments, ECI COG, with the help of the Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee, has prepared the hazard mitigation plan that will be placed on file with Alburnett City Hall for public inspection upon approval of the plan by FEMA. And whereas a public hearing has now been held in accordance with the published notice of the same as by law provided, therefore it be resolved by the City Council of the City of Alburnett, Iowa, that the above referenced Lynn County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan 2025 through 2030 be and the same is hereby approved. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 04-2025-03 as read?
So moved.
Motion by Myers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trum. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Okay, resolution 04-2025-04. So this was technically old business from our March meeting where we discussed the sidewalk settling on Muthart Street. We did not receive, it was mentioned during public comment, we did not receive enough quotes ahead of the April meeting for that to be part of the discussion. So thankfully we had a special tonight. So we went ahead and put this on the agenda. We did receive 3 different quotes. One to raise the concrete in the areas of concern, and 2 to remove and replace the concrete in the areas of concern. On the resolution itself, which we can review, we have included the unit price that was quoted, whether that be by square foot or by unit, because there is a little council discretion on how far we want to go with repairs. So the first quote you have is from Dan Sherman. So this starts on page 7. You'll notice he quoted all the areas where we had pictures that there was slight settling. So that includes a couple of single squares of sidewalk, 2 driveways, looks like maybe 3 driveway crossings, and a few other sidewalk sections. Your next estimate, starting on page 9, is from Polyrays of Eastern Iowa. So this is to, I don't know what material they use, but this would be to raise the areas of concern. So they also quoted the same that we provided pictures, and then on their pictures you can see what action that they're looking to take, whether it be to raise it or grind it down or whatever that looks like. And then all the way on page 21 is the final quote from Delaney Concrete. Their inspection, they quoted to primarily for the driveway at 147 Muthart Street, which is the resident that brought this to our attention. And then if we were to choose to do any additional portions of sidewalk beyond that, they quoted what that would be included at the $300 per section, per 4x4 section. I will say, when we first looked at this, it was brought to our attention. We talked about it in March, so it was probably early March. It was still pretty cold out. Since the frost has come out, a lot of these have actually resolved, including 147 Muthart, the resident that brought it to our attention. There's been a dramatic, so you'll see on the pictures from Polyrays, that is walk number 10 is what they have that one.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 17. Great question. So page 17, that was the area that we saw the most settling. And even that, if I were to go out there today, most of it has pulled out now that the frost has come out. Now, is it going to keep moving? Probably. So I would recommend we do something. So a lot of these other areas in the pictures were not as dramatic. And with the frost coming out, those have resolved themselves. So again, we've only received concern from the resident at 147 Booth. I'm going to pause there because I will want council. So we left the resolution open where we can actually determine how much of this we want to address at this time.
At this time, I'd be comfortable with addressing it with the citizen that has an issue with it.
And that would be to raise it, right?
And we would raise
I
it.
think that sounds pretty good.
And
Concrete's still in really good shape. That's there.
yeah,
It just needs to be.
And this might be something we wanna monitor a little closer.
Yeah,
next time, get a
exactly.
better
If it-
handle on it before we jump right into it.
if it, we're out there on those sidewalks. If we notice that it is becoming a problem as summer progresses, and it becomes drastic in winter, drastic in, and then drastic in the heat of the summer, then we should revisit this. But for the time being, certainly if, to get that one taken care of, and if anyone else, addresses it with us, or if we in our observation, notice that it needs to be addressed, and we'll take care of it at a later time.
So,
So that would be would that be 4 units?
well, let's see, I can, based on, it is going to
Are you
be,
back on page 17 there then?
I know,
it's
okay.
gonna be page 15 is gonna show where they have quoted to raise the sidewalk on the edges of that residence driveway, the sidewalk that adjoins the driveway.
Okay, so, and that is walk number 10, correct?
This one they titled walk number 6, so page
okay.
15 would be walk number 6.
Okay.
They also labeled it walk number 3. So I'll have to ask them. And then walk 10 is the driveway.
At the same location?
Yes. So it's 2 different unit prices for, well, it's the same price, $10 per unit. So we're looking at, I'm gonna go back to their quote really quickly. I would say it's walk 6 and 10.
That's basically the sidewalk where that joins the driveway and then the settling from the sidewalk to that driveway.
Correct. Yes.
So that's where basically 4 slabs of concrete.
Yep.
Okay.
So
6 and 10, that looks like it's going to be what, $1,185.93.
yep. And then you'll see, just for comparison's sake, so that would be the entirety of Delaney's quote, which is like 2,600. But on Dan Sherman's quote on page 7, you'll see 147 Muthart, which is the driveway, and the 2 squares of sidewalk on either side. So he's at 1,704. Compared to raise it, we'd be at 1,186. So just for comparison's sake. The concrete is intact, so yes, that is a true statement. But
It
is
does
not
look like the pictures are at 2 different times as well. That looks like it's more in the winter when it's really down.
I think,
And it looks like not near as severe with green grass. So I wonder, like you said, if it's come out a little bit.
it has definitely come out. I was there the other day. The one corner is still dipped. So yeah, the pictures with snow, so the walk 10 pictures, page 17, I believe, are the ones that we took ahead of the March meeting. And then the walk 6 picture, again, walk 3 and 6 are the same, but those, I believe the company took. When they came out to quote, and you can see it's pulled up quite a bit from.
Mhm.
But that's not saying it's gonna continue to, it's still something that needs to be resolved.
I move that we, move forward on the bid from Polyrays. For quote, for walk 6 and walk 10. Totaling $1,185.93. Resolve the property at, what was that again, 147 Muthart?
So I do have a resolution. Can I plug your answers into my resolution?
Yes.
So I've got resolution 04-2025-04, approving contractor for Muthart Street sidewalk. Whereas the city of Alburnett, Iowa sought quotes for the repair or replacement of sidewalk sections on Muthart Street that have experienced settling since the completion of the street reconstruction project in October of 2017. Whereas notice to contractors was duly given, and whereas 3 quotes were received as follows, exclusive of contingencies. Polyrays of Eastern Iowa is $10 per unit. Dan Sherman Enterprises is $12 a square foot. Delaney Concrete is $13.05 a square foot. Now therefore it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Alburnett, Iowa acknowledges receipt of the quotes and hereby selects Polyrays of Eastern Iowa for the proposed sidewalk work in the amount of $1,185.93, subject to further direction by the city council and authorization to proceed by Alburnett Public Works staff. Make that motion. All right, motion by Myers.
Do we need to state that it is for the address of 147 Luthard?
I think that's the further direction by city council.
Okay.
And public works staff. So yeah, we'll direct where that works to be done. Okay, I have a motion by Myers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trump. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. All right, and I do believe, I'm gonna scroll because I think we're good. That is the end of our packet. Yep. So with that, I will confirm the date and time of our next meeting is May 8th, 2025 at 7 p.m. That is our regular city council meeting. We should not need any other specials. This should be the end of what's needed for the budget. So barring anything else coming up. And with that, I would seek a motion to adjourn. Moved by Myers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Sukup. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 5:29 p.m. Thank you all.